Hi, this is Matt Thompson, and I just wanted to give an update on the Jeff Weinhaus situation. I apologize for earlier audio problems. I hope the audio is working okay now. And just wanted to update everyone. I did a video a couple weeks ago when I said that the state had 2 weeks to respond. Yesterday was the deadline for the state of Missouri to respond to Jeff Weinhaus' habeas petition. Jeff is serving a 30-year prison sentence for the crime of being shot by Missouri State Highway Patrol. And I outlined in that earlier video, I copied, there's a 50-page document of the filing of Jeff's habeas petition, which was filed in early April. And the state was granted until yesterday. And late last night, electronically, they filed at the last minute under the deadline. And I'm going to include their response to Jeff's habeas petition in the comments to this video. And basically, they haven't disputed any of the facts, but they've argued lots of legalese nonsense. But just as a matter of review, I want to review the facts that are in the original filing for habeas corpus. Jeff was shot on September the 11th of 2012 by Missouri State Highway Patrolman Officer Henry Folsom, and also Scott Mertens was with him and fired a shot. I'm not sure if it hit him, but anyway, Jeff was shot at near point blank range, and now he's serving 30 years for assaulting the officer who was not assaulted in any way. And the facts that were in the habeas petition are that Jeff Weinhaus was raided by the Missouri State Highway Patrol Officer Henry Folsom on August 22nd, 2012 at his house. And these officers of the State Highway Patrol were acting outside of their jurisdiction without a local search warrant from the sheriff. And they went in and they searched Jeff's house. They kept Jeff out on his lawn in his shorts and nothing else for 5 hours while they went through his house. It was said later that they wanted to, the reason that they set up this ambush was to arrest Jeff, but there was no new evidence on his computer. There was no reason to arrest Jeff that they didn't already have. If they wanted to arrest him, they could have easily done so. On the day that they raided his house, he was there without a weapon. When 3 weeks later, he was called into this ambush to get his computers back because they had taken his computers, which he needed to publish his bulletins. And that's where they shot him. They never told him he was under arrest. The facts of the case in the habeas petition, Sergeant Folsom testified under oath in the officer-involved shooting inquiry the next day that he had asked Jeff to walk over to sign some papers to get his computer back. And Jeff walked over, and then Jeff started to aggressively walk towards Officer Folsom and put his hand on his gun. And Officer Folsom told Jeff to take his hand off his gun, and Jeff pulled his gun, and that's when Officer Folsom shot him. And video proved that none of this was the case. Jeff did have a weapon, but it was secured in a parachute holster on his left hip. Officer Folsom testified that it was on his right hip. 5 eyewitnesses, including 2 FBI officers, saw Jeff from his right side, saw no gun, saw both his hands in front of him, and testified that he never moved his hands toward any gun. And the gun was later found in the holster on the ground, although Folsom had testified that it was drawn. Years later, through a trial that Folsom sued the state of Missouri because he was fired 2 years after the incident. And this case revealed that Folsom, against the rules of the Missouri Highway Patrol, without notifying his officers, had been on psychotropic drugs to treat post-traumatic stress syndrome since the early 2000s. The day after he shot Jeff, he, as you do in officer-involved shooting cases, he submitted to a drug test. He failed the drug test because he was on Ambien and Prozac, both drugs are known in all the literature to possibly contribute to violent behavior and are cited as corresponding to incidents in mass shooters with a high incidence of them on these two particular drugs. And this evidence was never revealed to Jeff at the trial. Sergeant Folsom was deposed under oath at the trial, testified that he was not under any medication. And the Missouri State Highway Patrol, immediately following the shooting, conducted an inquiry into the activities of Folsom. They found that he was violent and moody and intimidated subordinates, and that he departed from the truth. And none of this was ever revealed to Jeff or his lawyers in the original case or in the appeal or in Jeff's federal habeas case. And so these facts were brought up in Jeff's habeas petition. And in response to Jeff's habeas petition, the state never denied any of these facts in the case. And they have argued in 16 pages, and I'll put their filing below, but they've basically not disputed any of the facts, but they've argued that the facts didn't matter because Jeff was already convicted and so forth. And they said that because Jeff didn't raise these issues in the appeal, that he was not now entitled to habeas relief. Well, how could he have raised the issues in the appeal when he didn't know about them? Because neither the original prosecutor, the Missouri State Highway Patrol, or the Attorney General's office operating in the federal habeas case revealed any of this information. So they knew that Folsom had lied under oath. They knew that the FBI officers had testified that Jeff Weinhaus never went for a gun, did not have a gun on his right side. They had video evidence that Folsom did not tell Jeff to get his hand off his gun, that he was under arrest or anything like that. He was just shot. And so their response now is not to question any of these facts, but to basically say that the facts don't matter. He was already convicted. And, this may offend some of my lawyer friends, and I know there are a lot of good lawyers out there, but I have a more belief, like some of my libertarian friends, that the American Bar Association should not necessarily have a monopoly on all legal activity in America and operate a club, and you have to be a part of this club in order to access the legal system. But the fact is that they do, and that the prosecutors, everyone involved in this case, including the Missouri State Attorney General's office, are members of the bar, and they operate under the bar standards. So I would like to read to you some of the standards of the American Bar Association and think about how they relate to the Jeff Weinhaus case. This is the basic functions and duties of the prosecutor under Standard 3.12b of the American Bar Association standards. It says the primary duty of the prosecutor is to seek justice within the bounds of the law, not merely to convict. The prosecutor serves the public interest and should act with integrity and balanced judgment to increase public safety, both by pursuing appropriate criminal charges of appropriate severity and by exercising discretion to not pursue criminal charges in appropriate circumstances. The prosecutor should seek to protect the innocent and convict the guilty, consider the interest of the victims and witnesses, and respect constitutional law. Furthermore, in American Bar Association Rule 3.8, special responsibilities of the prosecutor, this is under 3.8D, says they have to make timely disclosure to the defense of all evidence or information known to the prosecutor that tends to negate the guilt of the accused or mitigates the offense. And in connection with sentencing, disclose to the defense and to the tribunal all unprivileged mitigating information known to the prosecutor, except when the prosecutor is relieved of this responsibility by an order. And there's lots of more stuff like that in Rule 3.8. Rule 3.8H of the American Bar Association standards says when a prosecutor knows of clear and convincing evidence establishing that a defendant in the prosecutor's jurisdiction was convicted of an offense that the defendant did not commit, the prosecutor shall seek to remedy the conviction. And so here we have, in Jeff's case, the offense that Jeff is convicted of, assaulting the officer, never occurred. He was not assaulted in any way. But they've argued that Jeff intended to assault the officer. And they've hid from the court evidence that proves that the officer lied under oath, that proved he was under psychotropic drugs that tend to cause mitigated behavior, that proved that an internal inquiry found that he departed from the truth. The jury in Jeff's case was never shown evidence that the FBI officers, 2 FBI officers and 3 other eyewitnesses, said that Jeff never had a gun in his hand, never reached for a gun, never had a gun on his right side like Folsom testified. So this looks like attempted murder to me. A lot more of a case for attempted murder against Folsom than the cop recently in Atlanta who was attacked with a taser. Jeff never moved his hand, never went for a gun in any way. He was never told he was under arrest. He was never told to take his hand off his gun. He never had his hand off the gun. The gun was later found in the holster on the ground. And Folsom lied under oath. And yet the prosecutors in this case denied Jeff this information, denied Jeff's lawyers the information about Folsom's drug use and all the other lies in this case. And now they're claiming in response to Jeff's federal habeas petition, a 50-page document which outlines each and every one of these Brady violations and the facts of the case. They claim that the facts don't matter, that the fact that it was hidden from Jeff's attorneys in the earlier case don't matter, that Jeff was convicted, and that Jeff can't raise these issues now because he was already convicted. So the Missouri State Attorney General's office, to me, any review of the facts of the case by the Missouri Attorney General's office, what should have happened was an immediate restructure of the Attorney General's office and the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Because here you have a systematic cover-up of evidence and effort to commit Brady violations, known by many within the Missouri State Highway Patrol and the Missouri State Attorney General's office. And the response to these facts being revealed in court is not to reform the Highway Patrol or the people in the Attorney General's office that committed the violations, or to come to any kind of justice, but rather to simply declare that these facts don't matter. Jeff was convicted of a crime that does not exist, and that's it. He needs to stay in jail. So that's where we're at. I'll include the filing in the comments below, as well as the original filing. And I think Jeff's legal team will now have something like 14 days to respond to the state response. And then hopefully we'll get a hearing. And I need to also mention this COVID business. Jeff's prison, like many of my friends in the beef industry know, they're targeting these COVID tests on industries that they want to control. And that's what they did at the prisons. They last week they tested the prison where Jeff is. In each and every instance where they run these COVID tests on a general population, they get between 10 to 20% of positives, people that have never been sick and never will get sick. Of course, this occurred when they tested Jeff's prison, and the media reported that it was a dramatic outbreak in the prison. They put the prison under lockdown. Jeff can no longer get meals in the commons, and they have restricted his attorney's ability to go down there and consult with him regarding this response to the habeas petition. And they've got the whole thing under lockdown because the COVID test, of course, showed a certain percentage positive. And that's where we're at. We don't know that the attorneys will be able to consult Jeff any further, and phone communication is restricted. But we're hopeful still that somehow, some way, we'll get justice in this case, because we can't have, an attorney general that blatantly disregards Brady violations, blatantly disregards obvious perjury in the court record, and it appears to be attempted murder. Just blatantly disregard it. No reform whatsoever in the departments that caused this problem, and no justice for Jeff. So that's where we're at, and I'll give you an update when we get further information about this, about what's going on with the case. But it's my hope that at some point we will have some kind of a public hearing. I know they're going to try to make it a virtual hearing. They're going to try to say that we can't have a public hearing, but we should have a public hearing, and we should have for Jeff's supporters to be able to go into a courtroom and witness the process. And so thank you all for your time, and we'll give you an update as soon as we get more information. Thank you.